Welcome to Stretford, Paddock. I'm Ronaldo Brown, and I'm back with the news at Old Trafford. And it's not been a happy hunting ground at United Stadium, actually. In the past few games, we've not been doing great, and we've got the Europa League final coming next week, and we are stumbling into it. But with their little end of season feel over the Europa League final, the only thing we've got to look forward to is the transfer window and the opportunity for United to possibly improve in the summer and see if we get some marquee signings and kind of make the progress that we need to challenge the likes of City and probably Chelsea and Liverpool next season at the top and even in Europe. So without further ado, I'm going to get into a little bit of transfer news. With the first bit of news that surrounded Real Madrid centre-half Rafael Varane, and the last time I mentioned Varane in one of these news videos, I got a little bit of stick about the way that I said he didn't quite reach his potential, and I think that got a little bit misconstrued a little bit. When I did say that, I didn't mean the fact that he hasn't been successful, he hasn't had the accolades, and he's not been part of some of the best teams in recent times. Obviously, he's won the World Cup as well, and he's won several Champions League titles, La Ligas. He has been successful, but I spoke in terms of the fact that when he burst onto the scene, he was expected to be generational in his performance. He was expected to be one of the best centre-halves that's ever been. He was expected to become one of those kind of Ballon d'Or challengers, almost Van Dijk ilk, in the way that he was kind of like almost a figure in defence for Real Madrid. I think it was part where he's kind of like, he's done well, he's been one of the better defenders, but I don't feel like he's quite hit the heights of what he was quite expected, and he has been injury prone at times, and he has been a little bit inconsistent when I've watched personally, but I didn't mean it in the sense of that he's not been successful at all. I wasn't putting a bit of a damper on his career. I'm just saying in terms of what he was quite expected, the expectation being so incredibly high in terms of him as a footballer, that's kind of what the comparison I was making. I wasn't saying that he hasn't been successful at all. I thought I'd just clear that up. But in terms of the news, in terms of him coming to United, on Fabrizio Romano, our good friend, on a podcast, Here We Go, he said Man United are waiting to see what happens with Rafael Varane's situation at Real Madrid, as well as Zinedine Zidane's, as it could be important to the player's future. Varane is the main name in United's list for a centre-back, and as I've mentioned, attribute-wise and skill-set-wise, Rafael Varane would be a great signing for us. I think he kind of suits the Premier League in terms of physicality, and he's got a little bit of pace and experience that I think the likes of Axel doesn't have. And I think he's definitely a massive upgrade on the likes of Lindelof, and it's become even like the need for a centre-half has heightened in recent weeks because of the fact that Maguire has got injured, and you've seen what's happened to our defence as a result. We seem very leaky, we look shaky, we look nervy, we don't look like we've got much of a presence there in the back, and I think that is something that we definitely need to address. People keep talking about the forwards, the wingers, the strikers that United need to bring in. And I think the most important two positions in the summer window is that definitely CDM and centre-half. And I think Rafael Varane, if you get him for a decent price, you can't go wrong at all. And if you pair him alongside Harry Maguire, you've got the basis of a very good centre-half partnership with Wan-Bissaka on the right and Luke Shaw on the left. And if they continue to progress because they're still young players, we've got a really, really strong back four then, because right at the moment, there's a lack of maturity. There's maturity around Lindelof and Axel, and Baye's always injured. Definitely need to address centre-half, especially if Maguire gets hurt, and to partner him as well. Let me know what you think about Varane. Do you think that he's someone that we should go for, or do you rather see a CDM, or do you think that it costs too much, or do you think it's one of them situations that's often the case with Real Madrid players where they kind of make this little issue with the club surrounding their future in order to get a new contract? Let me know what you think in the comments. Of the second bit of news, Mike McGrath from the Daily Telegraph has reported that United are looking at Southampton's Danny Ings as a target during the summer transfer window. United have made inquiries about Ings' situation. There's 1 year left on his contract, and there's no agreement following talks over an extension. And I think a lot of people look at the Danny Ings link and think, is he really someone that's going to take United a level up? Is it just another lateral move? Is he really that much better than some of the forwards that we have currently? But I think that's just one of them situations where United are monitoring it because they're looking at a possible stopgap with Danny Ings. The same way that obviously he's a little bit younger than Cavani was, and kind of monitoring the progression of the likes of Greenwood, because I think if you do bring in a marquee striker, what does that do to Greenwood's progression? And is a striker and is a forward player our biggest need in the summer window? And that has got to be the way that I think that United are looking at it, and that's something that we got to look at it. I've obviously mentioned that centre-half and CDM are probably the positions of need, And I think if you do spend a lot of your transfer budget on forward players or on a striker in the summer, someone that's going to cost you loads like a Haaland and a Kane instead of a Danny Ings, then it's going to affect your ability to kind of sign a decent player or a great player in one of those positions I just mentioned. So I think Danny Ings wouldn't be too bad of an option. Obviously he's Premier League proven, he has had a lot of injuries, and I do think he has the ability to perform a little bit of a job and be a little bit of a squad depth player and kind of strengthen it a little bit, especially if there's a little bit of unsurety surrounding some of the players and whether we might get rid of some in the forward line. I'm not going to say necessarily who, but I think there could be a possibility where some forwards might make way in terms of bringing some in. I know there's been a little bit of mention of whether Anthony Martial might be someone that could have a future at United or not. I believe he definitely should. I think he's still got a lot to give. But in terms of Danny Ings one, I'm not too sure whether it would actually likely happen. But it wouldn't be too bad if we do get him on a cheap. I know there'll be a bit of English tax and a little bit of Premier League tax on that. But if you do bring him in for a little bit of money and you are able to get players from a different position that I did mention in terms of CDM and centre-half, you can't go wrong. But let me know what you think about Danny Ings. Would you like to see him come at United for a cheap, or would you like us to go for someone like a Haaland or a Kane instead, and you like your luxury players and your strikers and forwards? And with the final bit of news, it's not from a great source in terms of the Football Insider, but it's surrounding another forward, continuing the forward trend. Obviously United love to be linked to them, and it is United are favourites to sign Sulemana after a bid with 8th of June critical to the job being done in terms of the transfer, because Sulemana is a 19-year-old who has 10 goals in 28 league games in the Danish league for FC Nordsjælland. If you can help me with that, I don't know whether that pronunciation. I've been trying to practice that, but it's not got any better. But it's one of those where the 8th of June is basically the time that United need to wait to sign him, because with the way that the kind of Brexit's been negotiated, he doesn't have the points or whatever to have a visa to come to United or something along them lines, like it says on the article. But it's a player that I don't know too much about. I know his statistics, I know he's 19, I know he's up and coming, and apparently he has to play for Ghana by the 8th of June in order to get them points, and obviously, or his club has to get an improved coefficient in terms of UEFA for United to be able to sign him. But I don't think there's too much in that. I don't know if United will look to sign this player. There's not too much known about him. It's been kind of briefly put out there in the Football Insider, and I think there's definitely better options and other options, but United do like to look for those little unknown youngsters that have the potential to kind of kick on and have a little bit of a career at United, or even have a bit of a sell-on opportunity. But I don't think there's too much in that. I thought I'd mention it anyway because it's a little bit of a story, a little bit of transfer news, and I'm here to report it to you. Obviously got to hear my awful pronunciation of the team he plays for. But in terms of Sulemana, 19-year-old Ghanaian international, 10 goals in 28 league games, looks promising, but I think there's definitely other players that will be better options. I think Danny Ings is a better option. I think there's other youngsters across Europe that might be a better option as well, especially that we don't know too much about him. And I think that with the way that United and United fans and the Paddock subscribers are so good at knowing about players and knowing about upstarts and up-and-coming players, I think someone would have mentioned him already. But anyway, I'm not sure if that's going to be something that actually comes to fruition, but I think United need to start looking for defenders and looking for centre mids and stop getting linked to forwards. But we're approaching transfer window and United are going to be linked to everyone. That's just how it goes. Some are in, some are out. But hopefully we get Jadon Sancho. I thought I'd mention him. You can't not mention him in a news day at Paddock. And I think that we should get a CDM and a centre-half. And obviously Rafael Varane and Jadon Sancho, them two together will be a successful window in my book. But I think a CDM, as I've mentioned all throughout the video, and I'm going to keep mentioning it all summer until we get one, is United's biggest need. But as far as the news today, as far as I'm concerned, I'm Ronaldo Brown. This is news at Old Trafford, and I'll see you next time.